Honorable Madam Bishop Kaisamari from the Diocese of Espoo. She's a doctor of theology and she's been working for the World Lutheran Federation for several years. And Mr. Benjamin Pitkänen, an animal rights activist and a Master of Social Sciences. Benjamin will go first, and he's going to show some pictures and some footage that might upset some viewers, so your discretion is advised. Benjamin, please, the stage is yours.
Yeah, let's see. Okay, hello, and yeah, lovely to be here, and thanks for inviting me to speak in this event. Yeah, as I said, as Sonia mentioned, I'm a university student, so I'm just finishing my master's in social sciences, so I'm really familiar with the university scene, so I think it's really lovely to speak to all of you. And yeah, I'm also a vegan activist, so I run an organization called Viral Vegans, and yeah, it was founded in 2021, and yeah, lovely to be here. So I will start about my own journey. How many of you would describe yourself as an animal lover? Hands up. Okay, most of you, that's amazing. And yeah, of course, growing up, I viewed myself as an animal lover because of course animals were really close to my heart. This is my dog Snowcha. I grew up in Central Asia, so yeah, she was really like my best friend, and when my other pets got sick, I was really sad, and they were like my, of course, family members, and they had names, and I treated them as family members because that's how I grew up. And I think there was a big discrepancy in my life, unfortunately. Every day I grew up eating other animals that had the same mental and emotional capabilities as my dog. So I wasn't aware what I was doing, but yeah, as you all might know, I was eating a Happy Meal, and I guess it's one of the most cruel meals you can ever have in your life, and it's full of murder and like torture and exploitation of non-human animals. So this was the big dilemma. So I said that I love, but on the same hand, I was daily eating other animals that were similar to my dog. And of course, this is a thing in our society that we have made neat categories for different animals. We say that, okay, these animals are to be eaten, to be exploited, and these are our companion animals, these are to be hunted. And of course, these categories are man-made. In the same way, we have had categories in our societies that, okay, certain people of color are mistreated, white people are more privileged, and we have had these racist structures, like many structures of oppression that we have divided similar beings into different categories. And of course, I oppose very much speciesism, so the idea that we can discriminate species because they don't belong to the human species. We are all animals here also, but yeah, I believe that we don't have the right to exploit non-human animals just because we are humans. That doesn't justify our behavior of killing animals. So the game changer for me was when I was 19 and I saw what was happening. I wasn't aware of what were factory farms, how were animals treated, so that was kind of the game changer for me. So yeah, after seeing this kind of footage, I immediately became vegan because I thought that, yeah, I don't want to contribute to animal exploitation with a single penny of my money, or I don't want to be part of it. And now I will show the footage. So yeah, please stay with me, and if you don't want to, then just close your eyes. But yeah, all that you see is the actual thing that is happening to all animals across the world.
Now, in a moment, I'm going to show a 2-minute video of animal factories, which can be difficult to watch. So I want to remind you that my intention is simply to raise awareness. So I have to make the invisible visible. I've selected material that I think is sufficient to inform you without traumatizing you. But if it's too difficult to watch, just close your eyes and plug your ears.
Piglets are castrated by workers who cut into their skin and rip out their testicles. Next, the workers chop off their tails. Once pigs have reached market weight, they are sent to slaughter. At the slaughterhouse, pigs are knocked in the head with a steel rod, hung upside down, and have their throats slit. Improper stunning condemns many pigs to having their throats slit while they are fully conscious of suffering. Because male chicks don't lay eggs and do not grow quickly enough to be raised profitably for meat, they are killed within hours after hatching. The females have it even worse. Workers use a hot blade or laser to remove part of the chick's beaks. At the slaughter plant, the birds are dumped from their crates, then roughly snapped upside down into moving shackles by their fragile legs. They are then pulled across a blade which slices their throats, causing blood to pour from their necks. Calves on dairy farms are dragged away from their mothers and violently killed. The majority of today's dairy cows are confined on factory farms. Workers subject young cows to painful mutilations and amputations. Unreliable stunning practices at the slaughterhouse condemn many cattle to having their throats cut, and their limbs hacked off while still alive and conscious. Massive trawling nets indiscriminately drag hundreds of tons of fish and other animals along the ocean floor. They are then tossed on board where the surviving fish either suffocate or are crushed to death.
Thank you. I know it can be painful to see that.
Yeah, okay, so those footages that you saw, those made the point that, okay, I don't want to be a vegetarian. Being vegetarian means that I would still use milk products which are full of violence, not egg products as we saw. There is massive violence, and if we consume any animal products, we are always treating sentient beings as commodities, as means to just gain more money to our pockets or to the pockets of meat companies. And us buying these things means that some people are putting pigs into gas chambers, they are having knives ripping the heads of sentient beings. And yeah, this is the thing that I have dedicated my life to talk about these issues, to make the invisible visible. And yeah, all of you can do the same. Being vegan is super easy, and I guess having a good night of sleep, knowing that I don't contribute to this animal exploitation is the best thing in life, and it has been the best decision to go vegan. And yeah, I really recommend, there is a cool documentary here called Dominion. There are these cards when you go out next to the camera person there, you can take this home and check this Dominion documentary out. So yeah, that's cool. And now I will move, how did my public activism start? So there are some Finnish people in the audience, so I will tell the story of my public activism. So here you see KFC, maybe how many of you know what's KFC? Okay, most of you. So it's called Kentucky Fried Chicken. It's a restaurant that offers broiler chickens, and they were opening their first restaurant in Finland, and they had promised 1 year's chicken for free for the first person in the queue. And of course I thought that as a vegan activist I want to be the first person in the queue and talk about animal rights when the grand opening happens. So I went with my pen, I put up my pen 3 nights before the opening to be the first person in the queue, and this mysterious tent guy got really viral in the Finnish media. It was the most read news in the biggest Finnish newspaper, and yeah, so it was a mystery, why is there a person? And I said, I love chickens. And of course I love chickens, they are my friends. So then came the day of the opening. I started giving a peaceful speech about why we shouldn't eat animals and we should have compassion with all living beings. And KFC shouldn't come to Finland. And you can guess what happened. So the guards took me and I was arrested. So I hit my journey continued to the police station. And of course this got a lot of news coverage because we are not living in an authoritarian state. But yeah, the society wasn't ready for my message of compassion and kindness to all beings. And since then I have been full-time vegan activist and of course partly studying but mainly focusing on bringing an end to animal exploitation and yeah, trying to create a vegan and more kind world. But yeah, now I want to kind of, yeah, this is our community once more. Like, I believe that the power of community is really great, and it's really great that you are all here. I hope once you leave this room, you take these things that we are discussing here to your daily action and your organizations, your universities. These things that I'm going to talk, and this is our Viral Vegans organization, so I believe in the power of community, and it can be a huge thing in life when we team up with like-minded people and push for a change. And yeah, the rest of the session I want to talk about carbon neutrality and the environmental aspects of animal agriculture, because I want to leave something concrete that you can do in your countries, in your universities, in your churches. And so in Finland, the church they have a carbon neutral plan to be carbon neutral by 2030. So now I'm going to talk a bit about how does that affect what things should be served as foods in the church and in the meetings. So the church says that in their official paper that by its concrete action to mitigate climate change, the church is a bearer of hope in the midst of climate anxiety and pessimism. We want to create hope and inspire the church members and others to work to mitigate climate change. We still have time to act, but there is no time to lose. So this is what the church says. And now I go back to Austria. This was in 2022. How many of you have unfortunately when I asked Sonja about the event, I heard that, okay, you are also serving animal products, so this it's maybe easier to pinpoint somebody else and then we can see what we're doing here. But yeah, okay, let's go to Austria, the bad conference where they had these green ideals and they were still serving meat and dairy. And this was like a green conference. They have some green certificates and they are talking about climate crises and this, I was shocked when I went there, that how is this possible that you have some climate policies and you are like basically, this is equivalent to fossil fuels in the table. It would be like, yeah, just like animal agriculture is one of the leading causes in climate change. So I was really shocked. But of course, as an activist, I don't stay silent. I raise my voice, and so we kind of teamed up and we made a big campaign to say that okay, the whole event should go plant-based. It's absolutely crazy. This event is like one of the, maybe some of you are familiar with World Economic Forum. So this is a big event where big leaders of the world come and many thousand people join. So we were saying that okay, we have to stop the greenwashing and we have to go plant-based. Because if we are not plant-based and if we don't serve vegan food, we are always causing climate change. So we did a big campaign and we didn't fully succeed, but at least they ditched the meat and they are vegetarian/plant-based, but of course it should go plant-based because the vegetarian food is still causing immense harm to our nature and to the animals. So, but yeah, this is what I do when I see problems. And during the same time last year, I guess many of you heard about the Pakistani floods. So it was really crazy that on the other one hand we are talking that we should act, there is a climate crisis, we have to do everything we can. And in the same time people are suffering, people are dying because of our greed to consume animal products. We have the alternatives, but still these people, they can't do anything. They have caused the least harm to the climate change, but they are the ones suffering. And so serving animal products, it contributes to the climate change directly. And of course, church is doing a lot of development aid. I have grown up in one of the poorest countries in Central Asia. I know what poverty is, and it's absolutely horrible that we think that we have the right to destroy our planet, and we have these policies, but we don't follow them. And yeah, there's a picture also from Pakistan from last year. These people, they didn't contribute to the climate change, but they are the persons and people suffering. And yeah, now I have one big quote here, but I guess you know this chapter, that in the same way, faith by itself, if it's not accompanied by action, is dead. So I see a lot of talk, but so little actions. And I think this is something that we have to look into our mirror and think that are we really doing the things we need to do? And here's just a fact. Already in 2006, this was stated. So the animal agriculture is one of the most serious problems in the climate change issue. And even if we stop using fossil fuels, which is of course a big shift, immediately, if the agricultural sector doesn't change, it's impossible to make it to 1.5 degrees Celsius, and even it's difficult to hit the 2.2 Celsius target. So by serving animal products, the church is constantly going against its own mission. The church can't hit the targets of 1.5 Celsius degrees if they serve animal products. And it's absolutely horrible to be in events where there is a lot of talk but no action. And this is something that we can immediately do to stop harming our planet. And of course the problem is systematic. This is a UN report that states that nearly all the global farm subsidies harm people and planet. And we need to talk about the animal agriculture industry that tries to stop this from being seen. And we need to stop in our own organizations to stop accelerating the climate crisis. So yeah, my main thesis is that serving animal-based food, you consciously accelerate eco-crisis, you consciously accelerate biodiversity loss, the sixth mass extinction, zoonoses. I guess we all know that packing animals, billions of animals in the same places, they create pandemics like COVID, mad cow's disease. There's plenty of diseases that come from factory farms. And it's really ridiculous idea that the church even has a plan to compensate, but they are actively destroying the planet by serving animal products. So there is no point absolutely to compensate after destructing the planet. We need to actively have policies in place to not destroy our planet. We have only one planet to live, and we have to act. And this is not about money. It's never about money what we serve in our events, in our organizations. It's all about values. Do we really take this climate crisis seriously, or are we just talking? And are we just having nice talks where we say that, yeah, climate crisis is bad and we have compassion and solidarity for people suffering? But if we don't have actions, it's not real. And yeah, so the plant-based policies, as I said, I'm a university student. This is a group of people of University Student Union of University of Helsinki. We made a plant-based policy there. 5 out of 14 student unions have made a plant-based policy. Restaurant companies, associations are making these policies. It's the new norm. And as university chaplains, you should really, in all your gatherings, you should only serve plant-based food. And yeah, this is from the National Union of University Students in Finland. They said so, because they shifted to entirely plant-based food in their catering. They said that in addition to advocacy, promoting sustainability also demands concrete action within our organization. We consider it important that CEUC also plays part in combating climate change. So we need action. This sums up the whole idea that we need real action on top of the talks. And only if we act, that matters. Talks won't save the planet. And this is a good example from University of Helsinki. So since 2019, they have only served plant-based. So vegan food at the receptions, parties organized by the university, because this overcomes most of the religious, ethical, cultural food restrictions and reduces food waste and carbon footprint. I think this is really neatly put why it's always the best. It's easy to organize. It's a real thing that has effect. And yeah, again, power of community. This is our group of students from last year. We wanted to open a fully vegan restaurant in Helsinki, and we succeeded. So we just said that, okay, we have to have a vegan restaurant, and here I'm eating in the vegan restaurant that only serves vegan food. So this is the future, and here is from a news from Cambridge. They have voted to go up for completely vegan menus, and let's say next year when you have your gathering, you could have it fully vegan. It's what everybody's already doing. And yeah, I guess it's super easy. Like, you don't have to be a scientist to understand how to push this change. You can just go and look at the paper. This is the carbon neutral church by 2030. You have all the leverages there. You just look at the paper, what it says, and you say that, okay, if we take this seriously, this paper, we need to go plant-based. If somebody's saying that, okay, this is communism, this is bad, what you're doing, you can say that, okay, we have these targets to be carbon neutral, and by serving plant-based food, we need to be carbon neutral. And we have to point out to the public that this animal agriculture is the fossil fuel industry. They are misleading, they are disseminating disinformation, so we have to fight and be brave. Because 20 years ago back, if you said that we should use renewable energy, maybe you were laughed out. Nowadays we have the option, and we have the way to tackle climate change, and through our food choices we can do that effectively in our organizations. And Risto, this is for you. So Risto's church the old church in Tampere, since last autumn, they have had this policy in place. So this is already happening inside the church. And, okay, let's allow So this is already in the church happening, and everybody should follow the suit and make it the norm. Being compassionate, thinking about climate justice, it's something that we should all do. And yeah, the next question is that, what will you do? I hope that all of you will do the same policy papers in your own organization. It's easy, and of course I hope that you also personally go vegan. But the main thing, and maybe the best thing that you can do, is promote sustainability in action through offering plant-based foods in all your activities. And yeah, thanks a lot, and yeah, let's discuss then later on more about these things. Thanks.
Thank you, Benjamin, and hello, everybody. What do you think? How do I feel right now? Having my bit boring, bit theoretical, bit academic, maybe a bit spiritual presentation for you, but thank you, Benjamin, for setting the tune for the rest of the event. But this was actually the title we were asked to speak about: ecological crisis, hope and despair. And I want to start with a picture as well. That was published in the Finnish main daily newspaper a few days ago, and that's about the event that took place a week ago, the destruction of the dam of Kharkiv at the river Dniepr. The picture is taken by the Black Sea coast. And I think here we can see some of the first signs of the scale of what happened and what kind of consequences the destruction of the dam has, not just for the people living in both sides of the river and the dam, in Ukraine, in some of those Russians living in that area, but also for the nature, for the other living, for the whole creation in that area, and what might be the long-term consequences from biological perspective, for social perspective, for whatever happens to those communities in that area. Of course, the dam broke in the middle of a wider crisis, that is the aggressive war started by Russians in the Ukrainian soil. But this is a crisis within a crisis. And I think that what happened in the Kharkiv dam the consequences of that is some kind of small-scale picture of what happens in this world today at the moment. What happens with the climate, what happens with the biodiversity, what happens to us human beings as the result of what we as human beings have been doing. Not just one event that we have decided to take, but how we have lived our lives already for centuries, actually. Not just decades, but centuries. If we think about the modern time as the time in the history of the world, as the time where that actually has led us into this climate situation, in the environmental situation, in the middle of the crisis where we are living in at the moment. But of course, it's not just the climate change, it's the consequences of the climate change. We have wider and wider migration, people seeking for new premises to live their lives in a reasonable way. We see what is happening for biodiversity. We see what is happening also for human communities. One of the reasons for the very polarized way of building our lives and seeing the other today, one of the reasons for that is also the crisis created by the climate change, created by the big time. We're not witnessing the times of change. We are actually witnessing the change of times, the change of a total ion in the life, not just in the life of the human race, but in the life of the whole globe. And this is thanks to us, and this is why I think we really need to talk about us human beings, not just about the non-human animals, as Benjamin put it, but us human beings, because we are the ones that we need to thank or blame about the situation where we're living at the moment, but also we have in our hands the keys for the change. And these are the last moments to use those keys in a reasonable and responsible way. Now, for the first title of this morning, I see that as a question, hope and despair. I think it's about hope or despair. I confess, there are moments of despair that I feel. When I read about the news of the climate change, when I read about the news about the warming in the northern Atlantic, when I read about the news of a whale that doesn't belong to the natural environment of the Baltic Sea ending up in these waters, I feel despair, because I feel that we have started some kind of movement that we are not able to change anymore. The changes are so big, and yet I decide to choose the hope, because choosing the hope is the only opportunity we have in this situation. And that's why I think from the muddy waters of Black Sea coast, I see hope as a clear water that brings the life and brings the continuation in our lives as the choose for that. And sorry, I should have a third hand. I really need to. Oops. Put this one down.
Käytä nuolinäppäintä.
Ei kun tää on tää mun muistinpano. But I think it was maybe 5 years ago when I realized that actually we have started to speak, or I have started to hear more talk about hope. And I was wondering whether it is that we really speak more about hope nowadays, or is it just me who starts picking up the word hope from the general discussions, whether it's about church elections, whether it is about the way we build our lives, whether it's about the food we choose to our plate. And then I was wondering if it's really the first case that we have started to speak more about hope. Why is that? Is it because we feel despair and we as a community want to grasp on hope, and hope has become somehow relevant and more important and more concrete for us, and not just a kind of general talk about hope as a kind of general good aim? But yet I have found that hope it's not very easy to grasp. And that's why I wanted to speak about a bit more kind of opening up what hope might be here with you. I actually wanted to start with Immanuel Kant, whose kind of pattern of reasonable or justified hope I found personally rather helpful. And I found actually when I heard Benjamin speaking, I think you are actually doing what Kant puts in theory, Benjamin is doing that already in practice. Kant thought that, I mean, there's a kind of triangle of knowledge, action, and hope. Those of you familiar with well, okay, I'll come back to that a bit later. But according to Kant, we have right, it's reasonable and justified to hope something, if we know that what we hope for is something that really can happen. It's something concrete, it's something that is possible. And the second reason that we have right to hope is that we are living or doing, that we choose deeds or actions that lead towards what we hope for. So we need to have the knowledge that we have right to, that it's reasonable, that what we hope for might happen, and that we choose the kind of actions that leads towards what we hope might happen. And based on these two, we have the justified or reasonable hope. And I think, for example, Benjamin has plenty of data about the consequences of animal industry. And on the basis of that data, you have the knowledge. And you hope that we might get rid of that. We might choose to live as the animals, the other animals, as our neighbors, to put that in Christian words. And in order to do that, you choose the deeds or the action or the activism to promote vegan food and plant-based food industry as a total option for the whatever we have at the moment. And this is a concrete example of what Kant is actually saying. And personally, I feel that every time I go shopping, every time I'm facing the cheese, this, believe me or not, Benjamin, I'm seeing all those pictures in my mind, even before you saw that, because I've seen that. And this is the kind of inner discussion I have. Sometimes I choose the deeds, sometimes for various reasons I take the easy way. So, but it might be a kind of total change that you have done, or it's the everyday discussions, everyday choices that we make in our lives, not just because in relating to food, but in relating to how do we plan to move from one place to another, whether we want to travel to Thailand for our holidays, what kind of shoes we decide to use, and so forth. So our life is full of different kind of choices when it comes to the climate change, when it comes to the ecological crisis in the middle of what we are living at the moment right now. But whose hope are we talking about? Is it an individual hope or is it a communal hope? And I think that their hope carries us further if we see hope as a responsibility of the whole communion or community, not just an individual person. And I think as you have created the community, the viral vegans community, that is a good example also for bringing people hoping and aiming towards the same goal together. And within a community, there's more reason to believe also that our actions and deeds are leading to something. And a wider, not just about what we are aiming at, but that creates a wider responsibility amongst the people, amongst those with whom we are working with. And as in this case as well, hope actually starts as a fuel for the starting point of a hope, is that we see injustice taking place somewhere, and that we want to influence a change. And loving your neighbor, whether that's another human being, whether that is a non-human animal, as you put it, or whether that is a future generation. Because when we're talking about climate change, we are actually talking about intergenerational justice. Not just justice amongst the people, those who are influenced in Pakistan because of the climate change, that's true. But actually we are also should consider the future generations as our neighbors. And that kind of responsibility towards our neighbors through solidarity, but also through real compassion. And I could hear compassion the way you speak about the animals that you have always loved and the choices that you have made in your life in order to make that love true and concrete. Then a few words about theology of hope. And I think Jürgen Moltmann, a German Lutheran theologian, is one of the key persons writing about theology of hope. And for Moltmann, rather recently, I mean, as you can see, I mean, he's close to his 100th birthday, and he's still writing in a very active way. And it has been rather recently that he has started to think about a new concept of eco-theology, challenging the way we see ourselves as human beings, not as the center of the universe or as the center or crown of the creation. I mean, this is what we're still at the beginning of the modern times. Since the beginning of the modern times, this has been our thinking about the place of the human beings in the middle of the all creation. Whether that's animal theology, whether that's theology of the climate, or whether that is a theology of being a human being, we need to, according to Moltmann, start thinking ourselves in a very different way as an equal part of a wider community, which is the whole creation. And my personal, the last point here is what I personally think. We speak about these issues in the church as well. We have the Carbon Neutral Church 2030 program in the Finnish church. We have a environmental diploma presented already maybe 20 years ago that a local parish or whatever is the church community that can apply in Finland, which includes different kind of steps towards more responsible way of living and being as a community. But what we haven't been doing is that we haven't been able to find a deeper spirituality addressing and giving words and prayers for the different kind of experiences that we have because of the climate change, because of the ecological crisis. I mean, we might mention that in the intercessions, but actually coming to a deeper level, giving space and understanding for the feelings of guilt, shame, and also despair. But also, how do we spiritually give words for faith, hope, and love within this particular context of climate change and of ecological crisis and of the change of times that we are witnessing at the moment. And I think there, at least as a Finnish church, we still have to work a lot. The Espoo Diocese has a partner diocese in Edinburgh, in Scotland, and there I see that they are much, much further in that spiritual wording of the situation where we live at, and also wording the place of us human beings as part of the whole creation, and how we actually, the deeds that we have done challenges our place within that context. And I hope that this would be the way, at least here in Finland, that we might be able to go further. And given the fact that we're talking about university chaplaincy here, I think that is probably one of the issues you need to face, and you might already be facing in a very good way in your work as well. I'll finish here. Thank you. And I believe there might be some questions from you.
Thank you very much. Is the audience eager to ask questions?
Hi, I'm Petra. I'm from Maastricht, the Netherlands, and thank you for both of you. Also, Benjamin, for this is what I wanted actually to share, is that it's such a mutual journey to be a chaplain. Like, we bring in our knowledge, but the students are demanding plant-based. It's like they know better, and this is a beautiful opportunity for me personally to learn. So, and on the other hand, there is my humanity and my fabulous, and when I travel, I eat dairy because I'm already low carb and it makes it difficult. But in the other days, I can be. So let us lead and be told by our communities. It's also such a beautiful journey. And just thank you for this. And also, Benjamin, just thank you for how you said it's easy. And it's also, and I wanted to add, it's also now tasty, because just 5 years ago, the shop called vegan food was really bad. But now it's tasty. So there is no question, I just wanted to thank you.
So thanks. So if I understood right, you have made already the plant-based policy. So yeah, so this is a concrete thing. And unfortunately, we live in a somehow weird world. Some people, plant-based means vegan, if you don't know the plant-based term, but I've just noticed, and we discussed it before here also together, that people get triggered by the word vegan. So it might be just a political, tactical thing to talk about plant-based, but it's the same thing. And of course, veganism is the whole philosophy of not exploiting animals. Of course, we use animals in our clothing, in services, and in many other ways also we treat animals. But I think the main thing that we can all do is to ensure that the food we serve is plant-based. And I didn't have time in my speech to tell, but you can contact me in my website, or you can ask the person here also to, or I can put to the Facebook group my contact details, so I will be more than happy to help you to make this interaction in your place. So I have many things to share to you, like PowerPoints and things, how you can argument to go plant-based. And yeah, I think it's always good to, like you said, that it's good to have the action, because many times we just have thoughts, but this is a concrete thing, and I think it's really symbolically great thing to go plant-based, because once people come to your events, they first time maybe eat a vegan food, they are like, wow, this is good, I might go home and start cooking vegan. So I think it's really strong thing to go plant-based and vegan and really have a zero tolerance to animal exploitation and really being like carbon neutral and having sustainable food. So it's really sends a message out, and especially students want to see the change. You might lose your legitimacy if you are not going plant-based, because the student, you are talking about hope and eco-crisis, but you are not walking the talk. So I guess walking the talk is really important. Do you have something to comment?
Yes, I think as you said, and we spoke beforehand already, and you mentioned that there's a reputation that it is difficult. It's not just about technically difficult, about people learning how to cook plant-based food. That is one difficulty that can be quite easily solved. But then there's the difficulty in between the ears of the people, the mentality, the approach, the understanding what does it mean, and how does it really influence. Because we are not just living in the middle of ecological crisis. Actually, we're living in the middle of the crisis of research-based knowledge that is now challenged more and more, not just in social media, but in proper media easily as well. And that is one of the reasons that makes it more difficult. Not just plant-based food, but for many other issues relating to climate change that might influence that. And combating that kind of alternative truths is actually I might say much more difficult than just changing the way you eat and finding new good recipes.
Glenn, please.
Yes, hello, I'm Glenn from Los Angeles, in California. Thank you both for what you have said. It's very helpful to think about. I just wanted to take, we believe in confession, in the church, so I just take a moment of my personal journey to, I've been trying to become vegan and get down to maybe 5 or 6 days in the week, but I was feeling quite good because when we make the exceptions for me, like we have these traditions of feast days and things, and it's a bad concept to think like that, but we were I was quite proud of myself that we would only obtain the meat or fish products from sources that are not the commercial industries, but the farms that pledge, humanitarian, treatment. And my neighbors said, Glenn, that's really cool. You're very focused on the humanitarian farms, but they're killing the animals so that you can eat them. So I'm still on that journey trying to get better, but I thank you both for great encouragement.
Yeah, maybe usually when I have this discussion is that the thing that we are talking about when we eat animal products is that it's our taste buds more important than the life of the animal. And let's say if I said the same story that, oh, here is a nice dog, he had a really nice life, look, this is the background he's living, and I just went and slit the throat of the dog, I guess you would all think that I'm insane and I should be sent to the mental asylum. So there is no ethical way to kill. I think these things can go together, and of course this is not a conversation that we are having, but yeah, being vegan is the only option to be ethical. And as we saw in the video, fish also feel pain. We usually tend to be most close to the animals that look similar to us, but fish are also sentient beings. They want to live, and I guess one priest said it well in Finnish that no animal wants to sacrifice his own offspring to other mammals. It's absolutely insane that we think that we have the right to take other people's children, or like the children of the animal, and eat them ourselves. And yeah, I guess being compassionate all the way is the way to go, and good that you are in the journey, and just, I guess, don't hesitate to go vegan fully. It's easy and it's the right thing to do.
Now I want to challenge you. I presume it's rather easy to agree within this lot of amongst ourselves that it is important, it is easy, particularly with the students you're working for. It's something that these people might be inviting you to make that choice on a daily basis. But then, sorry to say this, Benjamin, but you seem to be young and you seem to be full of energy. But when you're old and tired, and you have no, I really mean this. When you don't have energy to do anything differently, but you have your routines, you might not have even the money, if you go for plant-based food, to buy the kind of money that nutrition, you would be able to have a kind of balanced nutrition through that. How would you talk with that kind of people? I'm on the way to be there. I'm not quite yet, but sometimes there are days when I feel I'm old and tired and I have no energy to make any responsible choices. But what do you say for people to whom that is their daily bread, and they don't have simply that kind of energy, or they don't have the financial possibility to make that choice, even if they might want to do that?
Yeah, so maybe one of my job as a public speaker and as an influencer in society is to bust the myths related to veganism. And of course one of the myths maybe is that vegan food is more expensive. Of course, vegan food can be expensive, inexpensive. You have lentils, soy, you have so many sources of protein to use which are cheap. Of course it might take a little bit more time, but you can have a really healthy and vegan plant-based food with not so much money, or that's part a myth. But I guess in Finland we have this vegan haaste. It's maybe some of you are familiar with Veganuary. There are great programs where if you are totally new to the concept of being vegan, you should check out Veganuary. It's like a 30-day, there are many challenges, like 30-day challenge going vegan, and it shows you clearly if you're okay, I know one vegan food, then of course you easily go and buy the animal products, but there are really plentiful of resources available, and I think use those and then have the animals in mind. I think, at least for me, the animals are the most important part. Think about the footage that you saw, and when you have this tired moment, think about your tiredness is nothing compared to their suffering. I think like you really well taught that love yourself as you would, or like the basic principle of love, that love your neighbor as you love yourself. I think this is the thing that we have to extend to non-human animals. And if we do that, then it's easy. And if you have the strong conviction that this is wrong, I guess there are no days off. We are not like anti-racist from Monday to Saturday and then we are like, okay, but Sunday, come on, one day off. There is no, when it's a like a moral issue, there are no days off. It's always, we should kind of be vegan. But of course we are such in the beginning, but many people are becoming vegan. And I guess at some stage, when we look in few years, 10 years, 20 years, we will look at how did we not do anything when we saw what was happening. So I think when feminists have, or LGBTIQ plus people have talked about these issues, they have been really good, they have been, you're crazy, they have been said the same thing that now we vegans say that you're extremists, you are crazy people. But it's always when there is a progressive social justice movement, you always face a lot of death threats, harassment, bullying, online, offline. So I think that just you have to, and of course, and maybe this is maybe one of the biggest things still what I think is hindering the thing is the people around us. We want to be accepted, we want to be loved, we want to belong. And many of you have maybe when you say you're vegan, vegetarian, you face a lot of prejudice, and I think keep that in mind when you feel this prejudice. The people might have misled with this information, so you can explain them why you're vegan. And I guess many people give up when their parents say, oh, you should eat this. You are not respecting us by not eating the product, the meat we are serving you, but then you can explain and show them what is happening. So I think this is a big problem. The social, people want to conform in the social norms, so I think we have to dispel that. Sorry for my long nose.
Marcus from Switzerland. Yesterday evening we heard a speech and somebody said we can't say that we live in a world with white and black, the world is grey. Meaning we live in a world full of obligations. Many of these obligations are contradictory. So in this sense a question to you, Benjamin, and to you, Bishop Kaisamari. Benjamin, would you agree that in a sense of compromise, that in some cases consuming sustainably produced animal products have a better impact ecologically than industrially produced plant products? Or to put it another way, do you think in every case it's justified to replace animal lives by plant lives? Maybe we underestimate the value of plant lives. And the question to you, Bishop Kaisamari, how do you express your appreciation for people working in food production, for farmers, for those working in stores or in the restaurants, those who feed our society?
If I take the first one, since I have the mic. Thank you. Yes, I think as a bishop, that might be one of the big challenges and questions. I would, and I just to make it clear, I'm not vegan, I'm not even vegetarian, but I eat week by week, I'm more vegan. but for some reasons, for example, mentioned by Benjamin, there are moments and situations when I have to eat meat. But I'm aware of the challenges and problems relating to that. And I see that I'm moving towards more and more plant-based food. But of course, when I'm trying to speak about these issues, and when I've been, not very often, but sometimes trying to speak about animals and treating them as our neighbors, I'm aware of the people, particularly living in the area of the Espoo Diocese, where I'm the bishop, which is part of the metropolitan area, but we also have some rural areas in there, people living from farming and animal keeping as well. And I find that actually quite of the difficult in an emotional level, because in most cases these people have history of generations and generations behind them in that kind of lifestyle, and they feel that they are obliged to keep up the traditions of their family. Of course, I mean, if you're doing farming, why not then move towards plant-based productions in that field? I think it's important to hear the experiences and listen to the experiences of these people and give them, allow them to share their experiences, because they are, if we are experiences that we are living in the middle of the big change, indeed they are living in the middle of the big change, and it's challenging their whole self-understanding in a much more total way than choosing plant-based food is challenging our self-understanding. And that's why I think it's important to listen to the experiences of these people as well. And I think the ability for change happens only when you hear people, not just when you try to kind of make your voice heard and trying to... I do understand, and I totally agree that the change should be quick. But on the other hand, I don't believe that by force and by pushing, we are able to aim change that will last. But by listening, by understanding, and by gradual change, I believe that the change will last, and it will be a more total last. But of course, the problem is it will take more time. It might take generations in order to move, because we have built this kind of habit of eating not for hundreds and hundreds of years, because the meat consumed, the way that we consume meat at the moment as Western society, it's not traditional way of, I mean, that's a modern way of consisting what is on our plates. But for these people, it's, as I said, it's part of it's total self-understanding. And it's a question for them, who am I then if I'm not doing what my parents and my grandparents and my ancestors were doing? And there we need time. And there I think we need also to consider these people as our neighbors as well, and listen, because their suffering is true as well. It might be mental suffering, but it is true as well. And that needs to be taken into consideration as well. Sorry, a bit long answer.
So yeah, thanks a lot for your question. And yeah, maybe I want to point out that if we were to build the food system now, think if we could now choose, and if we were to vote, do we want that system or a system where there is no animal exploitation? I could guarantee that if we were to choose, I guess nobody would choose that. But yeah, we are in this situation where this is what is happening to animals, but there is absolutely no sense to have the food that we could eat straight and put it to animals' mouths and their digestion system and then kill the animals. And maybe to point out the thing, we have hundreds of millions of people not having food to eat in the developing countries and in the global south. But we have food for billions of animals, so hundreds of millions of people don't have food to eat, but on the other hand we have food, and most of the agricultural land that now exists in the world is just to feed the animals, not humans. And this is a big problem, and I guess that's also a reason why we should go plant-based, just out of solidarity. We should, and if the world went like plant-based, there was an Oxford study, we could free up 75% of the land. 75% of the land could be free, and we could still feed the whole world. And these, if we feed the lands, they could be carbon sinks, they could be the forest, we could revive the forest, animals would go back to their habitats, we could like reverse the biodiversity loss. So going plant-based and vegan is really vital. And to answer the question that is there some cases that it might be ecological, there might be some cases. I guess usually fishing is really harmful for the nature. It causes more it pollutes or causes more CO2 emissions than the aviation industry, the fishing, because they are trawling the nets. I guess there's a really cool documentary called Seaspiracy, and I recommend to check it out. It talks about fishing, but let's say in Finland, there might be some cases that still fishing might be ecological, but again, we have to look at the root cause. The root cause for the fish population is animal agriculture industry. The waste or the shit of animals goes to our rivers, our oceans, they pollute our oceans, and then the fish population grows exponentially. We are not treating the core problem by fishing in the Baltic Sea, the fishes, when we are not tackling the climate or the animal agriculture. So we are always we should fix the food system and not kill animals because there are more fish, for example, in the seas because of the shit in the ocean from the animals. So, and I guess that we have to have solidarity for these farmers, but we have to have solidarity for the people working in these meat plants. The butchers, they are suffering. These all issues are connected. This is also the people who are working in these industries, they are suffering. Think if your job was to put pigs into gas chambers, if your job was to slit the throats of animals, we would all suffer. Even I saw many of you were suffering just watching this. But think if it's your 9-to-5 job to do this. So by eating animal products, you are harming the animals, but you are also harming the well-being of the animals or the humans working in these plants. And of course, causing pandemics. It's a worst idea in all aspects you look at animal agriculture, because millions of people livelihoods depend on this. And in the same way that I guess in the future the shops won't have cashiers, I guess we will find jobs for these people. Nobody should be working in these slaughterhouses. They are the worst places in our societies. You can't go there. It's illegal to go there. You can't film what's happening there. And that's the reason, because nobody wants to see that. The consumers don't want to see that. And they suffer in silence. They don't exist. The people think that meat just somehow randomly comes to our table. But there is animal suffering, climate change, the people suffering in these plants. And if we really care about the human rights aspect, we have to go vegan, because usually also the workers are migrant, they are exploited. You can think that the owners of these businesses, they don't have a heart for migrants, for people, vulnerable people. So also in any aspect you look, I guess, in the big picture, we should go vegan. Yeah. Okay.
My name is Christine. I'm from Germany. Thank you for your testimonials and thoughts. I wanted to ask when I'm old, when I'm retired. I'm 60 years old, and I start every day. And my children are grown up, so now I have more time for engagement than some years before. I'm grandmother, and sometimes I'm tired, sometimes young people are tired. So age is no argument and no excuse. So I hope I can be active and accepted as an old woman, but engaged with young people together. I'm learning from young people, from everyone. This is my hope, to be alive and learning, and thank you for the chance for learning today. But I have another question. I'm happy and proud that yesterday and today Kant is mentioned, but I don't think in the end he is really helpful, because we know him many times and years. The question, seeing alternative truths and fake news, is, for me, how to bring people in dialogue and in action. And so I think the Jürgen Habermas is more important with his, I missing the words in English. I say in German, Herrschaftsfreier Dialog, on für I, house, everyone included, and maybe we need like new people who represent the other creatures, so that every voice could be heard. So my question again, how can we bring people in dialogue in action?
Yeah, so I can answer quickly. So the reason why I started doing vegan activism is because the non-human animals, they don't have a voice. I have a voice. And like sometimes we hear this that, oh, vegans are too radical, they are too noisy. But think if you were the pig in the gas chamber, or you were the male sheep being thrown to be shred alive. What would you want the people who could do something for you, what would you want them to do? So I guess talking truth, talking about science, showing that having the torch in your hand and showing that, okay, you are not acting according to your, let's say, carbon neutral plans, your climate policy plans. This is really important, and it's no wonder that there are plenty of people who think that going plant-based, going vegan is somehow maybe even more negative than eating animal products, because there is a massive industry. The animal agriculture lobby is massive. They have millions of euros money to disseminate disinformation, and it's not a Trump invention, this post-era truth. It has been going for decades. So the animal agriculture industry is equal to the fossil fuel industry, to the tobacco industry, and by making it norm to go plant-based, their power goes away. And it's really important that we in this room play the role of speaking truth and aligning our actions with the scientific knowledge. And yeah, we all can speak on behalf of the animals. We have the responsibility. We can speak, they can speak. Let's be the voice for the voiceless.
Thank you. About how can we build dialogue? I must say, I've been working with dialogue for most of my life in an ecumenical dialogue. And that might be a bit more easier field to work for dialogue because you have some kind of shared understanding where you're aiming at. But when it comes to not just about ecological issues or about what kind of food we should eat, I think the times and the discussion culture, I should say, culture we are globally facing at the moment is making dialogue far more difficult today than it was still 20 years ago, for example. And now when we're bringing up these crucial issues that are about the livelihood of all of us, the way the future of this planet. And in this field, the kind of contradictory or the lack of different kind of voices is obvious, and that makes dialogue difficult, because dialogue is not just about two opposite voices talking. Dialogue is also about hearing many voices and bringing the voices and experiences together. And the discussion culture of today is not supporting this kind of variety of understanding and listening to variety of voices. It's more about either-or discussion, and that's not dialogue in this case. And there I come back to the issue of community and the importance of community in building hope, because community should be about diversity. When it comes in diversity about what we understand as our food or diversity as our self-understanding of human beings, if we were able to build more diverse communities, that would be able to support the dialogue as well. But that actually also would be able to support our more sustainable future, because the more people we have coming together with different kind of life histories, with different kind of experience, of different kind of identities, the more diverse futures we are able to see, and we are able to prepare for different kind of futures. Because if we have learned something during the last 5 years, as at least within the Western world, is that we don't know what's happening tomorrow. The climate change, the rapidness of that, the pandemics, the war at the heart of Europe has challenged our understanding that the future continues as linear of the development of today. And that's why I think it would be enormously important to bring different kind of understandings of today and the future together, no matter what is the issue, in order to build more diverse the dialogue based on more diverse voices.
Thank you very much. That's all we have time for today.
There's a question.
We have one more question.
Okay, Lotte,
Okay.
please.
I'll try to be brief. I'm Lotte from Helsinki. Thank you for inspiring me so much. I was listening to this as an LGBTIQA+ activist, and this was really something even meaningful to me, because I'm often so frustrated. I'm like, there is only black and white. You're either for or against when it comes to human rights. And now you, Benjamin, you were inspiring me because I just realized that I'm the radical when it comes to LGBTIQ+ issues, and I try to be in human rights issues in general. And those conservative ones are not listening to me. That's why we need the moderate ones. And I often see that I'm inspiring those moderate ones who have good intentions but are not really there yet. And they can be the ones talking to the conservatives. And when it comes to eating, I'm the conservative. And still you're inspiring me because of this LGBTIQ level and this. But I'm so far, and sometimes it feels like it's impossible. I will never get there. And that's why I was so happy that we had you, Kaisamari, there as a moderator in a way to build a bridge there. So thank you very much for this inspiring session.
Should we take a selfie with that?
If we have the right for that.
Or should we take like...
As a younger and more energetic person, you must be better for taking this.
Let's stand up.
What is the move of the day?
Move of the day is your thumbs up.
Do you want to...
Please sit down for a little while. We can still continue with the discussion in our reflection groups, and there will be some little changes, and Heikki, the stage is yours.
Yeah, thanks, and good morning, everyone. For the reflection group,